I'm Humberto Schwab. I'm a philosopher and physicist. I was educated in the Netherlands, worked in the Netherlands in education, university, art academies and high schools. Basically to try to innovate education, which is very important, as you know. And we managed to get philosophy into this curriculum with the Minister of Education in 1998. So that was a big battle, and we won that battle, and after that we moved to Spain because there's also other nice places in the world. And there I started my own academy, which is the Socratic Design Academy. The Socratic Design is a methodology that I'm going to explain to you today to what is coding for the virtual world. Socratic Design is coding for the real world. So what we basically do, and before I start, we have to say we have Winston making some pictures and Miguel trying to put it on for the later generations, because we have a lot of online courses also in Socratic Design, so it's always good to record stuff, because maybe we get some new inspiration, which is already the case. But anyway, we live in Spain together. We have there our business, Socratic Design, which is basically consultancy, training, ID generating, and a lot of education. So the Barcelona Business School, Barcelona Art School hires Socratic Design as a sort of package. So I don't need to go into the organizations of education anymore, because that I know too well. So, and in Amsterdam, I do this also in the university. I come just from Amsterdam. So it's a sort of new virus into the academic world, which is very effective because it uses abstract philosophical thinking into concrete issues. And why is that necessary? Well, everybody is, if you read any paper of low level, high level, it's about what's gonna happen tomorrow. What are we going to do? How can we deal with rupture? And the other said you have to rupture. So if you don't rupture, you will die out. But when there is rupture, what do I do then? And there's a lot of innovation. We know that, of course, big data, as a philosopher, we know, of course, from where it started, but big data is not the main issue today. We talk about big data in relation to us, or the humans in relation to big data. But big data is in itself a sort of dream of everybody, but I had to have big data and then I can get more money. But big data is basically funded in facts. And the facts that we observe in the world are dependent of our window of meaning. The highest levels of CEOs in the world are now, you didn't know this because they keep it secret, they studied a minor philosophy. Why went all these people into philosophy? Anybody has a clue? Well, of course you know, because the old meanings are worn out. What is meaning is a very difficult question. But if you want to create, if you want to have a business or any activity, because a job you can forget, you have to create your own work, you have to be able to create meaning. What we see now in our actual world is an explosion, exponential technology, which is so vast in its speed, that we human beings are not capable of understanding this. I hope you know this exponential curve and the linear line of human beings. We are in the singularity point. So we don't understand it, but the superintelligence is capable of improving every day that we are sitting here, making it exponential more intelligent. So that is the artificial intelligence. So everything basically is possible. You can say, you dream, and then we make it. I don't think I have to prove that. But the point is, what are we dreaming about? And there we come with a huge issue, that we are full of industrial inner selves. So you have a internal ego, and you assume that you can think. You look all very intelligent people. Mostly, people think that they can think. One of the basic assumptions in our methodology is that we mostly do not think, even when we think we think. How is that possible? And this is very important, because if we keep on acting as if we can think, then we keep on pushing tools of the industrial coal and steel culture into the digital material. So it won't help you. So the secret is, if they go exponential, the techs, then we should go at least exponential. But the point is, and then of course the silicon guys say, you can go exponential, just put a chip in your brain and connect to the iCloud. Well, Socratic design says that is not a real human life. But before we can think together, we have to acknowledge that we cannot think. I have to explain this because it's not quite known to people that they cannot think. And why is it that we don't think mostly? Because we have a neurosystem. Our neurosystem is basically connecting electronic wiring to dopamine, and if it's happy, serotonin, but mostly dopamine. And the dopamine goes in the center of your brain to another part of the brain, and that's all why you get up in the morning, why you go here, fetch a beer, looking for love, etc., etc. It's all the dopamine. But this same dopamine that brings you to a potato chip or to a beer or even worse, marijuana, is also connected to your thinking system. So when you have a thought in our system, it gives dopamine. And you can say when they fire, they wire. You know that. And when you want to thought again, it gets stronger. It gives more dopamine. So if you want to think that Belgians are stupid, which is the thought, it gives you a nice feeling. So you think this must be true. You can also have the thought people are egoists. Most people have this. We do a lot of it. I'm also a member of the jury of the Dutch Minister of Education, so we go to all the schools in the Netherlands who call themselves excellent, and talk with a lot of pupils, and they all share the assumption in their brain, people are egoists. And when they think it, they get another shot of this. So even if you are very intelligent, you can have very intelligent thoughts, but you repeat it all over again. When I'm a philosopher, I can repeat the thought of Dewey, we are not interactive, we are only interactive creatures. And it gives me a shot, because I know as a philosopher, this is a very nice thought. And he would say no, because he has another idea in his dopamine system. That's exactly, he said he doesn't like Dewey, which is basically what everybody in the continental world is having. And we discovered that Dewey has the secret. Because in the academic world, you can be addicted to saying Ajax they are stupid football players, they give you some endorphin. At the highest level, it is like Dewey is a bad philosopher. That's it. So in this, all these cognitive circuits, we are drained into a harness, which is very important to realize. It's getting worse because it's also the same with feeling. So you know this sentence when your friend, wife or boyfriend or whatever says, I feel this is true. I feel I don't like you, so it must be true. You know that sentence? Feeling and thinking, I'm sorry to say, they have the same circuits in this whole system. There is no feelings and they are separate thinking. So feelings, when you say you have feelings, are mostly felt, the past tense of feelings. So when you have a depressive felt, most people say, I feel very depressive, so I am very depressive. That's not the case. You just have this felt, which is something from the past, and you are addicted to it. So the funny thing is that the neurosystem doesn't have a sort of thinker in the system, but this is a good thought and that is a bad thought. It just sees circuits, and when they close, they give you this dopamine. So we are dependent on felts, and we are dependent on thoughts. And this is a system of thought, that is captured our brain, you can say. And it's not a bad thing, because if you are in the savannah, in the early times of the evolution, you should know what a tiger is. Because otherwise, if you're going to start thinking, what is it, and can I have a real thinking about this, it would not help. So you have an addiction, this is a tiger, run. So all this addictive system in evolution have favorized sort of addictive thinking. Sadly, there are no tigers anymore. But you still have this system that works as if there are tigers. So then you say, okay, Dewey is the best philosopher, and that gives me the endorphin, that becomes the tiger, or the Belgians, or your neighbor, or Jews, or blacks, or whatever. But also very subtle thoughts like man is an egoist. Now, what is now happening in our society since 300 years, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, maybe some of you know them, you can basically say that Thomas Hobbes is the fundamental designer of our society. Why? Because he made very simple assumptions, put that together in a machine, and then it came out that this is your society. And what were his assumptions? Thomas Hobbes. Man is afraid of dying. That is the most important motive. Escape the tiger, escape the cars. Man is afraid of dying. Every man wants to have stuff to satisfy his needs. But he wants to have stuff to satisfy his needs, not what he wants now, but also what he maybe wants tomorrow. So if somebody sees a jaguar, he doesn't want a jaguar, but he can think, maybe I will tomorrow a jaguar, so I want it also. So this was the first time that somebody said, you want to have things. Then he said, people have a brain. You know why they have a brain? They can anticipate what another will thinking if he sees my jaguar. So if somebody say, we are in a state of nature, and everybody with this brain and this fear of death and this wanting to have stuff, power to satisfy your needs, then people are trying to work together. So they say, shall we work together? Because if we don't work together, I die, which is the worst case. So I try to say, come you here, you come here, and then I realized if he would come here, if I would be him, I would kill myself and take my boots. So what will I do? I will kill him before he would kill me. It's a very simple set of assumptions, it's almost like physics. And that was also what Thomas Hobbes wanted. He wanted a sort of Newtonian model of our society. And this is the society where we want possession, we are all egoists, and we need a police to protect us against your neighbor. So everybody has the story, monopoly of violence in the States. I have a lock on my door, and everybody is basically a potential attacker to me. Next to this is why we have, of course, the king, why we have police, why we have this hierarchy, and it works pretty well in an industrial society where you have, with an educational system, transform 10,000s of people into disciplined quasi-robots, and that worked pretty well. In this educational system was a sort of workout, a rollout of Hobbes' philosophy. You all had this educational system in the West, and maybe you know, and now we talk about a very important word in all this addictive thoughts, is the word assumption. When you are coming from an educational system, like most of you, well, some of you are dropouts, they're lucky. But if you come from this, you have some assumptions in you internally, and you are addicted to this assumption. And I give just a few. If you want them all, you can go to John Taylor Gatto, the website. But one is certainly you cannot judge yourself. So you always say to the master, is this okay? So you go to your chef now, is this okay? You cannot judge yourself, which is a very important one. The second one is you're not important because you are watching the back of the next one and he is watching the back of the next one. So only the person here is important. That you learn. It's very good to learn because later, like now, you're watching at me and your system is already, that is the person I have to listen to. So it's a drill, I'm not relevant. So most of and on a deeper layer, which is very interesting, people think what I think that it must be not. Because I am thinking it. So it's a perfect disciplined indoctrination. Fitting to the industrial workforce in the coal and steel Newtonian society. Well, we in the physics, we did a lot of quantum physics in my study, and we did in quantum physics, the world looks completely different than tables and chairs and balls. What is the quantum physics? It's a complete mess, everything. People, there are no bodies, there are no exact situation of stuff. Everything is intervening with one another. This quantum physics thinking never reached the people. What reached the people is the Newtonian thinking of 1600 and plus. And why? Because the educational system just reinforced this. So now we have a situation from the evolution, a system neurologically ready to be addictive to the same anti-tiger thoughts, then somebody pushing in, it was the Rockefellers who put this educational system into Europe, into United States and then into Europe, by copying the German, of course, the German army. And this system penetrates your neurological addictive system. And then we make, with this Newtonian physics, we make quantum physics, and this quantum physics, thanks to this quantum physics, you have this computers and this big data and this artificial intelligence. It's very simple. But we still are watching as if we are Newtonians. So, how, and now everybody says to you, to young people, the 30 plus, they say, if you listen to Jack Ma, he said, we have to listen to people from 30 plus, they have to make companies of 30 people, and they're going to make it because now the 30 years of real innovation starts after 20 years of mess. Because we are in a mess. I don't know if you see adolescents at schools. I was in one school, and it's quite a dramatic moment because it was a month ago, and I talk with kids. Well, how is your teacher? Does he really learn? And etc. Because they say all sort of beautiful things, but at the end of the day, they just throwing stuff at the kids, and they have to reintegrate it. But this was a very good school, and boy said to me, Mr. Humberto, I like this philosophy, blah, 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 but I want to tell you something heavy. I want to commit suicide, like a meeting of this. And I said, okay, that's very important. So we start the other talk, and we're going to talk about this. But first, I said, first I want to know how many hours are you on social media? I mean Instagram, because social media, that's a lot. It appears that this guy was 6 hours a day on social media. The girl next to him, gymnasium, 6 hours, another one, 10 hours, and another 6 hours, and somebody said continuously. And so there was one person who was looking very healthy, very strong, saying, I want to commit suicide. But I noticed that behind this person, there are thousands of people who have this emptiness inside them. So this is what I mean, a real mess. We have already some studies now from the United States about this adolescents, about the rate of suicide, depression. But this guy said it very simply. He said, what is the point? Okay? Because I have a sort of strategy against people who want to commit suicide. I always say you cannot commit suicide because you are not the I on your own. You are partly in it. You're that person, in that person, in that person. If you want to commit suicide, you have to talk with everybody, if it's allowed. And do you agree that I kill a part of you? Well, he was very interesting philosophy. He said, okay, can you send me some books? Yes, I will. So I sent him some books. But the point here is that such a normal person falls in this emptiness, so we have to do something. But it's a demonstration of the emptiness. He said, I feel so empty inside that I don't see the use of what we are doing. So I'm falling in the deepest depression. So the meaning is here a very crucial subject. And if we talk about big data, and we talk about artificial intelligence and then here lies the challenge. And also, I can tell you, here lies the challenge for very good business or very good activities. Because everything, you know that, even a lawyer, well, you can have a divorce with an artificial intelligence lawyer in 3 minutes, and a real person takes you 3 months. So what will you choose? Because it's cheaper. You follow the money. So what we're going to do? Is it really a mess? Well, according to the psychologists, these young people who are addicted at Facebook, it is even worse than I thought it was. I started studying some new recent investigation. These people see themselves from the look of the external Facebook screen. So they don't have a, like most of you and we have a sort of body feeling. They have a sort of look from the screen at myself, and some people see they're looking perfectly handsome or pretty, and they find themselves ugly due to this. Or one person from Wyoming had said, "You are very ugly." Like so that happened. So there are cases of people mutilating their face with a scissor in their own private room in front of this screen. So this is a bad stuff. So what is now possible to do? The whole artificial intelligence Silicon Mafia, I call them, they have a very simple, reduced, you can say, vision of what is a human being. What is a human being? That would be an interesting question to us all, and then we can talk about it. But we don't have all the time. But anyway, they would say a human being is a cogito ergo sum. It's a brain manning, steering the body. Is it correct?
Someone that thinks.
They think that.
Yeah.
It's a brain steering the body. So when we want to have artificial intelligence, we just have to look at the brain, the logical operations, and mimicize that. That's what they do. And then they say, wow, they can do that better than you. How do they test it? In Go, for instance, or in chess, or even in psychiatric simulation, which is very effective. What are these intelligence? What is a human being? Is that a real vision of a human being? Think for yourself now. Do you here find yourself a brain with a machine? Would you say normally, I have a body or I am a body? I am. I have.
I am in a body.
I am in a body. That's also. So, we can, every different sentence give us a different assumption about how you see yourself. And this is very important if you talk about artificial intelligence. Do we know what a human being is? Do we know what intelligence is? You know what is a very funny thing in our practice is the Socratic Dialogue. So I'm going to explain a little bit the Socratic Dialogue. Normally, like I told you, people are addicted to their thoughts. There's a second handicap. You cannot listen. Although you think you are listening, we've done a lot of investigation. Ask, do you listen to the person? Yes. Can you say what you say? No. So we cannot listen. Most of the meetings in business, you can skip, saves you a lot of money. They have done camera, what has been said, interviewing all the people, what is being said. Everybody has a different report of the whole proceedings. How come? Because if you combine this with the first thing, the addictive thoughts, that when you say, we always have to look for the stakeholders, that's an addictive thought. Or we always have to look for the structure underneath, it's also a thing. If somebody says something different, we will defend it, we will not hear it, and we will only capture the stuff which is not in compliance with your addictive basic assumptions. How can we force people to listen? Well, we can torture them, but basically then if you are under stress, you cannot listen either. So we use the Socratic Dialogue, which is a methodology of very strong discipline, where people are forced to listen to one another by repeating literally what another person just said. I can give you an exercise you can do at home, and you can feel how it works. You go home and you ask a question to your partner or to your friend or with whom you're living. You ask, for instance, what do you value in life? That's a nice question. And then the person gives an answer, and then you repeat that literally. You will notice that you find it very hard to do.
It's exercise.
Yeah, this is the exercise. You will repeat it, and then you ask to the person, did you say this? First time the person will say, no, I did not say that. And you true or not?
Yeah, true.
So you say, okay, can you say again what you said to me before this? Okay, I say it again, and shortly, not too long. Say it again. Okay, I will repeat it again. Did you say this? Yes, now you're right. And you feel already the pain in your brain to reproduce what the other exactly said.
But I mean that the...
Wait a minute, we are not ready with the exercise. Because then you have to ask, can you elaborate on that? So you repeated what they said, they listen to their ears, their own words, and you ask, can you elaborate on that? And they will go on, and you can go on the whole night. Probably, or they will say, can you stop it? Or you have a new vital input for your relationship. So we had saved, a lot of people come for training in Spain, where we live, and there was one guy who said, wow, I love this training because I have a new boat. What does it mean? I have a new love, a new girl, and I only have to arrange the stuff with my wife. And then we did this exercise, and he did this exercise with his wife. So he mailed me 3 weeks later, Humberto, I stay with my wife. Because I listened to her for 10 times, and we go on. So every time you say, what is your answer? Repeat it. Can you elaborate on it? We do this in the Socratic Dialogue, not that much, but then we can say, we sit here and we can ask ourselves, what is our common philosophical question? Because Socrates, it starts always from questions. And it can be a simple one, because simple ones are the most essential ones, of course. What would be your question?
What is life?
What is life? Perfect question that we can, if we can solve this together, we have some very nice wisdom, or not? So we go to start with this question, then we think about how shall we deal with this question. We have some methodologies like assumptions, case study, etc., etc. And then we start, and in this starting moment, and maybe we can do that question, so that's an interesting question, what is life? And in that moment we continuously ask, who wants to say something? Somebody raises his hand. Can you repeat what the other just said? And the next also, and the next also. And we come to this is the secret of one philosopher who's also a physicist, David Bohm. Maybe if you heard of it? No? David Bohm, it's very nice that this guy who died in 1989, I think, the book of David Bohm is going to reappear, translated in Dutch in May. David Bohm discovered that when we do this, something very strange happens. Your consciousness, your tacit assumptions, by looking together and what we are thinking, are going to be converging. So we're gonna make together one consciousness. And this consciousness in between, so somewhere on the table. And this consciousness, that all people knew this, all tribes always use this way of consciousness. Sitting together for 3 hours, and then something will come up. But we don't need to discuss, because if you discuss, and you discuss together, you will repeat all the same addictive thoughts together, and it will be very nice for 2 hours, but you won't have reached a common consciousness. And this common consciousness, you can also call that common attention, is the secret of creating a window of new assumptions. And with this new assumption, we can just create new realities. And this new reality just don't come from one person. Because one person say this, the other person feel counter that person, but he has to repeat the sentence of the person, and in his mind, he changed his thought. He said, wow, this is an interesting thought, the brain said. That's how it works. It's the Ubuntu philosophy then for Western thinkers, of course. But we have to get rid of this skill, brain, consciousness in the skill. So we have to practice the consciousness together in a very slow, silent, oriented way. And in that way we can create new knowledge out of the Newtonian Hobbes industrial stuff. So if you look at artificial intelligence and data, there is no possibility that artificial intelligence can do this, because we are embodied intelligence. Here lies the secret. You have to be with all your bodies in this room to get this effect of quantum mechanic effect, I would say, of a together energy. And you can compare it to laser light. If you have this light, it's very weak. But if we control all the directions of all the laser waves in one direction, it's getting as strong as a laser. If we would all together watch at the question, what is life? Then we have a super brain, but not a one in the skull. So what we do with Socratic design is, people come there, business or university, even university professors, cannot discuss between one another because they keep on repeating their dissertations, of course, you know that. To get people open, we get them there, but for a business this is very interesting, because you can think about what is a real human need. So human needs are the secret of what is life. Why are human needs now not well understood? Why do we have this crisis in adolescence? How come? Because we don't have a clear understanding of ourselves. So we see ourselves as standalones with a brain acting in a world outside us. But the point is, we are always incorporated in a common intelligence. So what can we do? Did what used to be psychoanalysis, maybe you've heard of that, of course. Psychoanalysis has been eliminated due to behaviorism. Psychoanalysis has a secret of looking together of our internal world. So our internal world is not a private stuff. Most people think, and in the Dutch language it's a very common saying, when they say, that's your opinion. You know that? Dat is jouw mening. What does it mean when you say that's jouw mening?
I don't care what you
I don't care what you say. I don't care. You think what you want, and I think this is completely the opposite of the collective consciousness. But how did it come? This I don't care what you say. You just say what you want, and I say what I want. Because we had this disembodied brain. That the brain is irrational, like a computer. So before artificial intelligence came, we already had this computer image of ourselves. That the brain is some dematerialized, de-embodied entity. How can we then, well, if you look at these young people, nobody gave them an organization of their internal world. Okay, what did they say to the young people? It's your opinion. You are completely free. We don't give you religious structuration, we don't give you communist indoctrination, we don't give you any indoctrination, you are perfectly free in your own skill. And what will happen when you do that with kids? Then the philosopher Onfray has there a very nice word for that. If you let young people, or even kids, some people say to kids of 3 years old, you're free, what do you want? What is going to emerge is a neurological jungle. And that's why these people said, I'm quite depressed. So we need a structure in ourselves. But then you have to acknowledge that ourselves internally is not a private stuff. It's a collective stuff. So that's why it's interesting that in Rotterdam, for instance, 20 years ago, they said there's a lot of violence in the Zomerhof street, so they said we're gonna force people to say good morning the whole day, or good day, to greet each other. This is an external stuff, but it had an internal effect on people, very huge. Well, this is where we can have a huge challenge of creating meanings in the embodiment of people together. And this is the opposite of Facebook, because in Facebook it's disembodied for the first time, and there is no meaning because what you want. And some people get attention because doing the most strange thing they can invent. So what we have to do, and that's why Socratic design is a real design approach, we can create reality from scratch. We know that this building can be teared down and then we make with 3D printing, although it takes a lot of time, a new one. The same can be done with culture, human beings and their internal organization. So the challenge lies in using all this artificial intelligence to get wiser and leave behind our industrial self. So we are basically very intensively always connected to art. Art is often seen in the world of Hobbes' industrial world as a luxury. Yeah. So you do it in the sideline. Probably art is above science. Why? Because we're looking for experiences. And experiences is not only limited to your thinking. Experiences is the broad spectrum of embodied interaction. And this broad spectrum of embodied interaction you do with materials, humans, and so on. So what we do normally in Socratic design, and I'm trying to get to your question then, is a business comes and they put on the table their assumption, and the CFO, for instance, has to acknowledge, I am completely addicted only thinking in profit or numbers or whatever. By saying that, the thing starts moving. And then you, by dialoguing and by putting the values on top, we get a collective brain. And then we can think of, okay, what is our company basically? So what is the essential takeaway in the coming rupture of this exponential singularity? You cannot prepare yourself. Nobody can. Because it can flip in one day by another, you can say, aggressive invention. Or even a war. So we don't know what. But what can we do? We should stop thinking in products and in, stop starting in concrete. There's a man in the brain who produces this and he wanted that. People are looking for the meaning of life. That's why your question is so essential. And how can you do that? You can do that by first start to think about your own meaning. And how can you find your own meaning? Not go external, but find your assumptions in your life that are not yours. So you have a lot of assumptions that are not yours. But then you say to people, that's me. Well, I say the reverse. When you say that's me, then probably that's not you. These are the assumptions you have built up like defense mechanism. So I have a lot of personal clients, the CFOs, CEOs, who want to become a transformer. If you want to transform your company, first transform yourself. Most of these very successful people have built their success on assumptions which are a result of violent experiences or mental breakdowns. Like, I have to attack everybody because otherwise they attack me, which is a very simple one. But you can see in front of you, can see the person who has this. You can come very high with that. And then you say, that's me. But probably your assumption is dominating. So the secret of life is to find where is the me. And the philosopher Heidegger would say, where is the being instead of becoming. So everybody in this room has a full agenda, for instance. Very busy. When he takes the phone, and I'm very busy. Because that's the assumption in our society that at least that's the bottom line. If you don't have it, I cannot talk to you. Hobbes always also had mentioned it. You need to have this assumption, otherwise you're not successful. So you can have the assumption that you are very stupid. I have had clients who studied English and then became a director of but deep down inside, they had the assumption you are stupid because one teacher 40 years ago had told this girl, you are a lantern without a lamp, to a kid of 8. So you have to realize kids absorb stuff far beyond any proportion than adults. So if you want to look at yourself, what did as a kid have I experienced? That's a good way to start your investigation of your assumptions. And then you can touch the real self. Let's say that you reach that, and there you always will find what is a human need. The second thing is, of course, what can I do in my life? Where am I good in? This is also a very philosophical question. In my village, there is a bakery. It was a very nice bakery because he bakes on wood and so on. Everybody comes from the other village in Catalonia to buy the bread. And he thinks that he sells bread. But what is really what he is selling? He is very, very fat, half naked, and with a smile from here to here. And the smile he repeats like 1,000 times a day. And it is like, everybody comes every day, does he still smile? And yes, and I get the smile. Thank you, here's €1. Gracias, hombre. So, what is really what he is saying? That's a very interesting thing. Some people think they are, for instance, making shoes and then selling shoes. But what they are really doing is, maybe, the purpose is help you walking. So, the secret is, find your purpose on the deepest level, connected to your deepest ambition, your value. So it can be that you have very strange things that you like. I don't know what, but nobody heard of it, but you liked it. When you do it deep from your real self, not your assumption self, there's always somebody who wants it. You know why? Because all humans are the same. So if you have discovered this need, then there is another human who also has this need. So what we see is in this whole world of development, of design, of innovation, we have to create very deeply exponential humanity values instead of technological values. And if we go exponential humanity, we have to get rid of the industrial I. That means stop thinking that people are egoists, stop thinking that we are just a brain and a body, start thinking with your body, which is very interesting, and start losing away the possession-driven stuff, and start being afraid of the future. Because fear is one of the strongest drivers of our past 300 years education and system. And fear, of course, kills your whole creativity. The point is, how do I find out this? Well, you can do this in a group, you can do it in yourself, but first you have to detox yourself from industrial thinking. So when you have a thought in yourself, again, like a thought can be, I cannot do this, or I will fail, or they don't like me, or I have to be nice, otherwise they reject me, or I cannot think, or I cannot do mathematics, whatever thoughts, or even a thought about your partner, she goes again or he goes again, then a thought where you get negative, you put one question in front, which is very interesting, it's a very cheap therapy. You say, do I want to think this? So instead of going into the thought, you say, do I want to think this? And when you have a feeling of aggression and you see a woman in a car and who cuts off you, you get an aggressive emotion because you're a man, you can ask yourself, do I want to feel this? By doing this regularly, you will come to the highest level of your prefrontal neocortex. And you have to go to your neocortex. You want to be creative, that's why you are in this network. But you cannot become creative if you stay in your industrial self. So try to do this. Do I want to see, do I want to think it, and do I want to feel it? And if you have thoughts which can be real destructive, don't say, I am thinking this, but say, the thought that I will fail is entering my system. And I want to leave it out. And this is a more adequate way of how our system works. And then you want to be creative, say, okay, I want to be creative, so I invent 4 people, and we're going to do listening experience. So we're going to exchange listening, you ask me, and you ask me door continuously, and then you come in the next level of creativity. And this is a very powerful tool. It never, I can always say as a consultant, I never fail, because I'm not a consultant, I make you help yourself. And if for instance, we had the Rabobank, and we had very small in the Netherlands or in Spain, but the Rabobank, and have all the CEOs on this table like this, and we start with a question. What is your question? And they never ask the question. Nobody asks himself questions, because that's what you don't learn at school, ask questions. You learn to answer the question of the teacher. But then the guy sitting on the table of the Rabobank, it's always fun to do this, and then they said, what is a bank? And that's beautiful, of course. And then we said 2 days about what is a bank, and then they said, and someone said, why do we have money? The guy is earning money all his life, and then he said, why the fuck do we have money? So this is really interesting to move outside your addictive stuff and to get rid of that. Yeah?
I just have a question because I'm curiosity
Yeah.
and I'm trying to listen, to everything you're saying. But if I were to ask you right now, so not your assumption if I were just to ask you like, who are you?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? What would you say?
I am a interactive soul which is embodied in a body that sometimes, that mostly is interested in deconstructing reality in atoms and in simple basic ideas. And then making new ones. So I always want to, I'm sort of Lego player, and I first started to study physics, but it's very boring to do only physics because, this mathematical. And then I said, let's do philosophy. And it was also very boring because all the teachers say they are just copying what Nietzsche said. Yeah, I can do that also. So that's why I invented, well, it must be something different. And now I have found it. I now see exactly what is the building blocks of reality and how to put them again on the table and then build it together, and to make people happy, which is very nice. And of course you get a lot of shit if you have these private clients, because they were tortured, they were beaten. For instance, an industrial family which invented the color TV. The guy, who is a very nice guy, was beaten by his father with a stick because he didn't have a 10 for physics. So you get all these beautiful stories about his families. So then you get rubbish in your body. So then I go to a Turkish healer and he pulls all this stuff again around. So I always would say I'm an embodied experimental thinker, and I don't know everything, but we tried always to go together. And what are you? Who are you?
Like, I thought I knew who I was, but now I don't know anymore.
Oh, but that's a good start. That's a very good start. So you are already on the first.
Yeah. So let me think about this.
First level. But you can find out one exercise is this, do I want to think it? There's one other exercise, it's a little bit chilly, but you go alone, and by day, because otherwise you have this Me Too stuff and so on. You go by day in front of a tree. You're going to sit in front of a tree 2 meters, and you're going to watch the tree trying to look without thinking. So you try to be an eye, and then you will say, well, it's a tree. No, you don't know that's a tree, because that's a concept. Well, I see leaves. No, that's also a concept. But what do you really see?
Do you mean without language?
Almost without language, and then at the end of an hour you can say, well, it was something like this. But to do the exercise, you can follow what you see. And what is our experience with this? And this is really shocking, so that's why I'm telling you this, that you can exercise it before coming to Spain, although we have very nice olive trees there. But We had 14 artists from the Art Academy in Arnhem last November, and they're very experienced artists, famous, I can tell you the names, and they were not capable of looking without concept. And they said, this is really shocking. And then, so they now introduced in this academy the tree watching for all the students to get to learn what do I see without concept. And the funny thing is, if you do that, you can come in a state of relax, which is enormous. It has also sometimes can be very risky, so that you discover stuff of yourself and that you faint. That's only happened once. A Turkish business leader woman. But the Turkish culture is very heavy on assumptions about women. I know them because all these private clients give me a lot of information about this culture. So in the Turkish culture, if you are a woman and you have your wrist broken, the assumption is if your wrist is broken, just put your sleeve above. So that says a lot about her. So, and she felt this, so she was in front of the tree and suddenly came to herself, and then she fainted just for a few minutes. So you can really feel yourself. It's not mindful thinking, because mindful thinking is very, well, it's an error in the concept, because your mind has to be empty. So it cannot be full. That's the whole secret. So the tree is a very advisable thing. The do I want to think it is a very advisable thing. And a lot of stuff is going into a life of emptiness. Leisure means empty. So if you are continuously occupied and you think I have to be busy and a full agenda, you're empty, your mind is full, and it cannot enter a new idea. New ideas come into, as like an ecosystem, into you when you are empty. And one of the best examples is the tree, of course.
So actually what you mean is you don't have to have fixed opinions.
Fixed opinions is very stupid.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You can trust yourself when something happens and say, what is this system now saying? Oh, well, let's say that. But what you do have to have is your coherence between your head, heart and belly. This is very difficult, because most people don't know that the heart can think. They say, well, are you crazy? But your heart is a very intelligent organ. So if you don't use your heart intelligence, you will never be aware of it. But how can you use your heart intelligence? Well, if you feel the slightest antipathy of somebody or difficult feelings, you have to go away from this, like Jimmy Cotter said. You go to a table in a hamburger, in McDonald's, sit down. I lift this table, I'm going to sit there, because you got very bad vibes. He was very sensitive for this. But we have this all in ourselves. But we don't use it as we think this is a machine. Most people start having problems in their head by thinking, and then they say, I have to think more to solve the problem. You know what is the secret? Thought has created your problems. So the way to leave it is to stop having this thought, which is quite a challenge. But it is also giving a lot of energy from your body and your real free self before you were a child, you know, bullied by somebody, or having crazy education, or even coming from a Protestant culture with very strict self-guilt assumptions. So it's very important, the narrative of yourself, and most people do it when they are older, but it's very nice to do it when you're young. Because it started somewhere between 0 and 12, where all these assumptions take root. And yeah, so one question, somebody? Yeah.
You said your internal thoughts or your internal self is actually not internal. That's really interesting to me. Why?
Yes, that's a good question. This is a new, complete new stuff. But if you look at me now, we are interacting thanks to all the organs we have on the outside. I'm now focusing my brain on your question, and you are looking at me and then putting the things together. Now we are together somewhere in between.
Okay.
That's it, that's simple. So we are always in between. So you are not a self, you are, this is Dewey, and that's, he didn't like it, so he's gone, but anyway. Dewey said, we have not an ego, we are our interactions. So if you drink now water, I suppose, you drink wine, then you are now a wine drinker.
Yeah.
And if you go there and go to tango disco, you are a tango player. So you can say the whole day, I am the teacher goes to teach, the eater goes to dinner, the tennis player is going to play tennis now. This is a far more effective way of describing ourselves.
So I am what I do. That is
You are what you do, or what interact is better, because if you can also sit and interact. But this interaction is a beautiful challenge, that if we make beautiful interactions, then we are all good. And you know it yourself, because you enter a room and you see that this is a very nice interactive place, well designed. So you feel different. If you would go to a high school now, I did as a jury member last month, I feel quite, strangled. I said, this poor kid. So we are not in ourselves. We are on the skin between our inner and our outer world. And the one who has only said it and who never understood, nobody understood, is John Dewey. But this is a very nice solution. Also, if you have thought problems, okay, I stop the thought, I'm going to act. And most people do that. They're going to say, I'm going to squash, or I'm going to beat somebody, whatever. But that is what we are. So if we make a new society, and we have to with all this AI, we have just to design good interaction between people. And if we go on with this artificial intelligence, we will become like that. That's the hell. So if we go on in the Silicon Valley model from, okay, more robots, more this, then we will become that. Because they force us to interact with them in their terms. So we have to make the interaction more in between us, more human, and then adapt the technology to us.
whose term exactly you mean when you say in their terms?
I mean, most of all, the Singularity University. So if you look at the Singularity University, they have a limitless belief in, we can enhance our brain, we can put Peter Diamond, we can put a chip on this and then connect to the cloud, and we can enhance it. This road is for us quite a hell. Although there's one person who said it's even worse than a hell, that is Hanson, who said we have emulators, we're going to make emulators. Emulators is just copying the most smartest people in the world. We put 10 smartest people here on the table, copy them, put them in artificial intelligence, and then the emulators will go. The emulators will emulate themselves every day, 10 times, 40 times, etc. So they will be far out of reach of us. And we cannot follow this. Hansen says, you don't like this story, but this will happen. Well, I don't buy that. I think we can decide and put another model, but then we have to really enhance humanity. So we have to, instead of adapt us to whatever technology, we have to enhance our way of humanity, and it is redefining the self. So the I basically is a continuously moving we, and then you are basically a body and then participating in the we, which is, when you go to a disco, you know that you are a we, and in a body it works. Well, this is basically the better human force we can have. Okay, well, we are situated in Spain, but we come also to the Netherlands, and I just received an invitation of the Erasmus University, but because we give also master classes on several European universities, also Stockholm Business School, but also we train individuals and groups to learn Socratic Dialogue. In the Dutch language, or in the English language, or Spanish. And this is a training which can help you rebuild from scratch. But it's good to kill what is the defense towers in you and stop saying that's me. You can better say, these are the successful assumptions that penetrated from education and from Thomas Hobbes and from the society in me. And then you are free to be in the, to be in the being, which I would hope that people will enjoy, and they will have a complete different vision on cars and stuff and whatever. Yes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.